it's fun to watch any golf, at any level. It's fun to watch, but you certainly enjoy watching golf played at the absolute highest level. And you'd like it to be able to play at the highest level with the best competitors as often as possible. And that's, in the end, what I'm hoping will be accomplished through all this.
Foreplay presented by Barstool Sports. It is July 11th, 2023 when this show comes out. We got a very big show today. July 11th is a hearing, an early preliminary hearing with the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations and two members from the PGA Tour. They invited Monahan, Yasser Al-Rumayyan, and Greg Norman. Obviously, Monahan took about a month off or whatever it's been for health issues, coming back next week. And then scheduling conflicts did not allow the other two in. But you have Jimmy Dunn and the COO for the PGA Tour will be testifying in front of Congress, in front of the Senate subcommittee. So we have Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, who I interviewed for about 30 minutes, who is the ranking member of that subcommittee about the entire thing. And we have Frankie's wedding to get to. Frankie's still doing wedding stuff, so he's not here, but we can talk about it. We got some very interesting developments in the golf world. We got a little bit of drama between some LIV players with Koepka and Wolff and their quotes. We got the U.S. Women's Open at Pebble Beach. We got our guy Dewey just out of the clouds, jumps on the bag with Sepp Straka and wins a golf tournament by shooting $1 million under par in the final round, despite doubling the last hole at the John Deere Classic. So we got much to get to. Hello, gentlemen, and we got Trent and Dan Rappaport as well. How are we?
We're well. I survived Colombia. I was waiting for that to be included in sort of the foreplay. Where are they now?
I wasn't sure how much you want to talk about Colombia. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean, it's fine.
I don't know if that's one of those things you don't address.
Whatever you guys are considering, whatever the image in your head you guys have of a bachelor party in Colombia is exactly what happened. And we'll leave it at that. But I've now been to a bachelor party in Vegas and Colombia since I joined this podcast, and we're 2 for 2. So I'm feeling like a pretty mature adult. How are you, Trent?
I'm doing great. I did want to say congratulations, just a huge congratulations to Sepp Straka and Dewey for their win at the John Deere Classic. That's just a huge win. It's a big trophy to add to your trophy collection. It's the best trophy in sports. I was surprised to see Dewey. When I saw Dewey, I was stunned. But I mean, he's our guy, so I'm happy for him. And also a huge congratulations to Frankie and Hannah on their wedding. Riggs and I were there. It was a very, very fun and good time. I don't know how much we want to get into it, but just an overall a great weekend and a great wedding, I thought.
Great wedding. Saturday, start to finish, was a very fun time. It was a Catholic, I believe, wedding. So they had the ceremony at 2:30 or so in the afternoon, done by 3:30 or so, and the reception at Bethpage didn't start until 7 o'clock or so. So we had a little bit of a gap, which turned out to be nice. A bunch of us, Tommy Smokes, Kevin, Rudy, me, Trent, folks we
Bob
don't
Fox.
necessarily. Bob Fox, who he was the original producer of Foreplay, which is incredible to think about. Was there, and we don't necessarily get to mingle with them all the time, so we got to have a couple drinks. Went to the reception. Dave was there, who always is going to drive some very interesting conversations. We were all at table 8 together for the most part. Stu Feiner was there. He wasn't at table 8, but quite the scene at the wedding. Frankie, I will say, if you had the over-under at 4.5 seconds before Frankie would start crying during the ceremony, the under hit in a landslide.
Yeah.
The second that the organ or whatever it is started playing, just waterworks from him. But a phenomenal wedding. His crew, I will say, from back home, from whatever it is, Hempstead or whatever part of Long Island, I want to get all those towns mixed up. Reminds me a lot of, I feel like Trent too, probably my crew from back home. Just a lot of blue collar, big families. They're all from there. They all hang out all the time. They've all been going to the same couple dive bars their whole lives. So his crew reminds me a ton of my crew from back home, and just getting immersed with Frankie's family and Hannah's family, who were a great time. It was a blast. They had like a 10-piece band, I think, playing. So the dance floor was going pretty good. People's shirts got ripped off at one point. It was an excellent wedding. It was a good time.
Yeah, and it was my first Long Island wedding, and I've been hearing about this Long Island wedding thing basically since I've known Frankie, because apparently it's this huge thing. And I know, just weddings are a big deal in general. It's a huge celebration. There's always a ton of food, a ton of drinks, all that. But I kept hearing about this Long Island wedding, and in particular, the cocktail hour, that the cocktail hour was this huge There's this huge thing where there's all this food before you go into the reception and before you have dinner. And I actually think, despite how much I've heard about it, I don't think I heard enough about it, because it's an amazing experience. Like this cocktail hour, there's all, at least at the Borrelli wedding, there was all these different food stations. There was a pasta station, there was a calamari station, there was meat and cheese, there was all the taco, there's all these different ones. Steak.
Oh, it was insane.
I just never seen anything quite like it. And you're thinking, I can't believe that we're going to have to eat another meal after this. And then the dinner was wonderful, but the cocktail hour was the highlight for sure, just because there was so much food and there was so much of it. And like I said, I've been hearing so much about it. So to actually experience it was really something. And if anything, people undersold it.
And good thing that we had been briefed on this situation, because the cocktail hour at most weddings that you go to is maybe 30 minutes while you're kind of waiting for the wedding party to come back from taking pictures. You have a gin and tonic or two outside. It's nice. And then you kind of sit down for the main deal, and they hit you with like a 5-course meal, and you're at the wedding and the toast. You got 3 drinks in front of you. People were like, no. This 7 to 8:30 hour, or whatever this is, you need to hammer the food, because this is sort of the main attraction. And you walked around, and like you said, there's food stations all over the place. It was hot and a little bit muggy. So we were like, do we want to hit up this pasta? And next thing you know, the pasta, they had like this tortellini and this fucking penne alla vodka, and you're loading up on pasta and tacos and steak. And it was fucking delicious. And it was at Bethpage Black, which was really cool for all our Bethpage in general. Bethpage Black was right there, which is really cool for all of us. People's Course, probably the first major championship that we had full access to. So it was bringing back all kinds of memories. Frankie found out Jeter hit his 3,000th hit, I believe, playing like the 11th hole at Bethpage Black. So he's got all this energy and all the history there. So the fact that we were doing it there was cool. And just an excellent scene. Mr. Borrelli in his element walking around.
Dude, I was going to say, I would be remiss if I did not bring up Mr. Borrelli, because he stole the show. And again, for crying, whatever over-under number you had, the over hit within the first 30 minutes I saw him. Like, he pretty much cried the whole time, so I don't know how that factors into the numbers. But he cried a ton. And then when they do the entrances, how they announce, here's the mother and father of the groom, and they come in, they do their sort of little dance. Mr. Borrelli had, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like a rubber pizza dough, and he was throwing it into the air as he entered the reception hall.
Wait. Like, please. Not an actual pizza dough, like a prop so he could be.
It was a prop. It was a prop rubber pizza dough. So him and Frankie's mom come in, and he's throwing the dough in the air. People are going crazy. Dude, it was so good. I wish I had gotten video of it. And Dave, I was right next to Dave while it was happening. He was like, fuck, we should have gotten video of that, because it was an unbelievable entrance. And then, like Riggs had mentioned before, there's apparently, and people might know about this, I did not know, when there's professional hockey players at your wedding, it is tradition that people rip their shirts off. So
really?
Yes. So Matt Martin was there, Brock Nelson was there, Scotty Mayfield was there. And as the night got into the later portion, people's shirts started to be opened. And Frankie's shirt got opened. All the hockey players, their shirts were open. I saw Scotty Mayfield and Frankie corner Tommy Smokes and tell him to take his shirt off. Tommy made him stop. So he was like, it's a new shirt. I don't want to break the button. So he slowly undid his shirt in the most Tommy Smokes thing ever. And then Mr. Borrelli, he got in on the action, and they were lifting people up, and people were laying sort of on across people like you see at a concert. And Mr. Borrelli was just clapping his hands, crowd surfing. Those are the 2 words that I could not think of right there.
It's okay. Put them together. We got there.
So Mr. Borrelli just had a performance for the ages. And you know what? I wouldn't have had it any other way. I get that it's Frankie and Hannah's special day, and they had a great time, and all the attention was on them for the majority of the night, but there was a good portion of Mr. Borrelli where he was just the superstar, and he deserves it because he's a legend.
Yep. The speeches were very solid, and it was very a little bit. It was an interesting dichotomy with both speeches essentially chirped Frankie for being an Islander fan and not, a Ranger fan. And then there was just a whole table of New York Islanders.
Yeah.
That's right. So as they're like chirping and like booing the Islanders and cheering the Rangers. There's just a whole table of Islander players. So that was a great sort of
you also
element.
do realize why Frankie is the way that he is if you're at that wedding, because he really is surrounded by all Ranger fans. His wife is a Ranger fan. She comes from a Ranger family. All of his friends, the table that was going crazy on the opposite side, of the Islanders, there was a table going crazy, and it was all of his hometown buddies who are Rangers
So
fans.
why are they all? They're from Long Island. Why are they all Ranger fans?
I have no idea how it works.
Yeah, because Balls is like a Rangers guy, right? And he's a Long Island guy. Yeah,
huge. So yeah, that's actually a good point. I don't know why they're all Rangers fans, but
I don't know that there's a ton of rhyme or reason to it. I think it's sort of it seems pretty convoluted.
Like maybe the parents of these children grew up in the city, and then you move out to Long Island, and then I don't know. I have no idea. But you sort of can see into the mind of Frankie Borrelli where he feels trapped in his Islander fandom because everywhere he goes are Ranger fans. So he feels like he has to really express himself as an Islanders fan, and that's why he's so crazy.
Yep. Yeah, you do get it. You do get it, and you feel you see why he senses that the whole world is against him at all times is because he's surrounded by it, which was beautiful. Dave said, he's like, I cannot believe during those speeches that Frankie restrained himself. Like, what? Those people had the mic and all the attention on them and were touting the Rangers and chirping the Islanders, and he somehow sat silent. I cannot believe he didn't charge the stage, take the mics, and lose his mind. So credit to him for showing a lot of restraint. Him and Hannah were awesome going around and talking to everyone and doing the whole where you're basically a politician. You go by every table and shake every hand and thank everybody. They're excellent at that. And then things started to get a little bit wild later in the night, which was great. There were flip cup games that we were involved in. And then the Borrellis, I believe it was the Borrellis, made like 100, I believe, that they delivered pre-delivered. I think they made 100 personal size pizzas. And at the very end of the night, as things wound down at 1 a.m., they just all of a sudden had 100 personal size pizzas that people grabbed, housed, and then went to bed. So it couldn't have gone any better.
I missed that because
right after you guys ducked out, I think, Trent.
I was going to say, because as a 34-year-old man living a 75-year-old man's life, I left at like 11:45 when the band was winding down, and I was like, I'm going to get out of here. I didn't realize that there were going to be personal pan pizzas handed out. I might have stuck around for a few more minutes.
There was like from the midnight to 1 a.m. hour, there were cigars and then hat-sized pizzas, like those little Pizza Hut ones that you get at the airport or at like a hockey game, and that hit the spot. And then we had a shuttle ride back for 12 or 15 people, however many, and it turned into a pure sing-along, like no music on the actual speakers, just sing-along. I believe like it was, I think like Frankie's, might have been Hannah or Frankie's uncle or somebody really got it going, and he picked the first couple songs, and then Frankie threw it to Hannah, and she did Build Me Up Buttercup, and it was just a whole sing-along on the shuttle. That was a banger. That was kind of the last one that I remember. And then we got back to the hotel, lights out, and it was over. So it went extremely, extremely well. It was a great wedding. Congratulations.
Congratulations to them. Phenomenal wedding. I know it's a big event. It's a lot of pressure, especially when there's people in attendance who have platforms who can talk about what the wedding is like and things that they like, things that they didn't like. It was a great wedding. It was a great night. Everybody had a really good time. Unfortunately, for a big guy like me, it was a hot day, but we were mostly inside. But having to wear a suit on a hot day was tough. But that's a personal problem. That's not their problem.
First thing I texted Trent in the morning, I went and got coffee at like 11 a.m. And I was like, we're in trouble today. Like, it is humid and hot. And we kind of got lucky. Like the one or two times we were outside, it was pretty windy. So it wasn't horrific. And then the church, you never know a church. Sometimes the AC can stink and you could just sit there and like sweat. We were in there for about an hour. So AC was great. And then obviously inside the reception, I thought AC was fine. So we ended up getting by okay, but I was panicking going into that day as well. Great wedding. All right, this is a show that really a pretty American show. We've got an elected official from the United States of America, one of the more powerful folks that decides the future of this country that's been here for, 250 some odd years. Chevy is another thing that I think of when I think of American companies. Trusted. Chevy is a trusted brand with innovation and scale. Chevrolet has been trusted with transportation needs for at least 100 years. They've always been there for you before. Who better to take you into the next phase of electric vehicles than Chevy? They got hybrids and all electrics, and they've been selling, by the way, Trent, I don't know if you know this, they've been selling hybrids and all electrics for over a decade.
That's longer than I would have thought, because it feels like this EV movement, it's really taken off now, and Chevy they're at the forefront of it. So I'm not surprising in the sense that they've always been on the cutting edge of the next best thing. No, Chevy they're the ones. They got these EVs. There's stations popping up everywhere. I think on a full charge, you can go 400 miles, which is unbelievable where they've gotten the technology to be. And we've seen a couple of these machines, and they are pristine. They're unbelievable. And yeah, Chevy just knows how to do it.
Dude, I just went to Chevy.com, and they've got, right when you go to their site, they got this Silverado. This thing's all EV now. Trent just talked about it. Goes 0 to 60, I think, in under 4.5 seconds. They got this Chevy Silverado with the bow tie right on the front there, and it's in like this valley in the mountains with like tall pine trees, and it's like on this rugged road with grass growing around it, and it just looks as badass and cool as I imagine a piece of machinery built by humans can possibly look. So I heavily implore everyone listening to go to Chevy.com/electric. You can learn more at Chevy.com/electric. The bow tie, EVs, trusted brand like Chevy. Go to Chevy.com/electric. Few logistical things to get to. We got new merchandise. So the summer merchandise is coming out today.
Oh, yeah.
Got some gear on. I got this polo on from Unreal. And then we've got one of the newer items that I really am going to highlight here for the folks. Go to store.barstoolsports.com. Get yourself some gear. We got these shorts, boys.
Oh, yeah.
This is a pair of shorts
cool
that I'm holding right here from Unreal that have a little Barstool cross T logo right there.
I like that. That's classy.
Make sure people can see this shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful Transfusion logo. If you're looking on YouTube, it's the Transfusion logo on a nice light blue pattern with a white shirt. We got this one, boys, that says Barstool Golf. I don't know if that's like the COVID molecule on there. I don't know what exactly that is.
Yeah. It's a fidget spinner.
That's a fidget spinner. Okay. All right. It's nice looking.
It is.
Sure, exactly.
Certainly better than the first example.
What it was. But it's beautiful shirt, little Barstool Golf script there. And then this one where we do I like when they do this. It's got the miniature little logos all over it.
Oh, I really like those.
Yeah. These are all class. Frankie likes to wear these a lot. So anyway, store.barstoolsports.com. I don't know if this hat's going to be on there yet. I think it might be. It's got like a little pattern underneath it. A lot of cool stuff. Go check out store.barstoolsports.com. Foreplay, that's kind of our brand. And then, okay, we're going to jump into a little bit of golf chatter. Shout out to me. I went 5 for 5 last week at the John Deere Classic on the gambling show with Kirk Minahan. 5 for 6 technically. Me and Kirk got talked into Eric Cole, who is our guy. We've been riding him all year. Kirk had him on his list, so I said, sure, I'll take it. So technically on the bets that I placed 5 or 6, but I got Aberg, good old Ludwig, top 20, plus 138, hit. The Jägermeister, top 20, plus 188, hit. Brandon Todd, top 30, he almost won the tournament, plus 150, hit. Grayson Murray, top 40, who's been dominating on the Korn Ferry Tour, plus 300, hit. And then Adam Schenk, or is it Adam Schenk? Yeah, the Adam?
Yeah.
Adam Schenk versus Adam Hadwin, round 1. I had Schenk winning that. He won in a landslide. That was plus 110. And then Eric Cole missed top 21 plus 175. So massive week on the golf gambling show. And then the biggest news that we touched on at the top is that also a big Teal Gang member, Sepp Straka, gets the win. I have a great text from Dewey. I texted Dewey last night, just a standard way to go. Congrats, bunch of exclamation points. Texted back this morning. He goes, wait, what the fuck just happened? What a week, kid. From sitting in Pinehurst watching my kid play golf to getting a phone call and winning a tour event 6 days later. Let's fucking go. I didn't even know that happened. I didn't know that occurred in that fashion. So it sounds like Dewey was literally just hanging in Pinehurst. His kid, Alex, I believe is his name, who's an unbelievable young player, plays at Pinehurst tournaments all the time. Dewey supports him. Dewey's whole Instagram channel has basically become a stan account for his kids, which I love playing golf, which is so wholesome. And so he was clearly just there hanging, it sounds like. And then 6 days ago, he gets a text because Sepp's part of the Till gang and part of that crew. Caddies for him, shoots 62 in the final round and wins the golf tournament.
Yeah, so Sepp, it's a big weekend for the European Ryder Cup kind of bubble. We were talking, made a video about this that I think is going up today, so yesterday when this comes out. But Ludwig, obviously a top 5 finish, his first one. I think there's a lot of guys who want him on that team. He's so young, he's so good, he's only getting better. Sepp, let us not forget, it's Austrian. And people forget because he grew up in Vienna. I know his story. I know Sepp a little bit. He grew up in Vienna. He moved to, I believe, Valdosta, Georgia, at the age of 14. So
that sounds like it's not in Georgia, to be frank.
He very much grew
Valdosta?
up. Yeah, Valdosta. He very much grew up in Austria. His German's perfect too, but he speaks English like someone from Georgia. He's got like a southern drawl, and he's like violently addicted to Diet Coke. I remember I watched. He was playing with Fitz one tournament, and they were first off, and I think I counted 11 Diet Cokes during the round.
Wow.
So I don't know if he's kicked that habit a little bit, but he's up to 27 in the world, and I think he might be I think he might be the first guy with a pretty significant Southern accent to play on the European Ryder Cup team. I don't know that that's ever happened before.
Right, because when I hear him talk, I'm like, oh, he sounds like Tillery. Like when I talk to Tillery, that's how Sepp sounds. So that'll be very interesting to watch.
He went to Georgia. Like he's from the age of 14 until now, he's as American as you could possibly be. But he's probably he's 27 years old. He's 27 in the world. He's probably going to make the team. He's got a really good chance. There's definitely not 12 guys ranked higher than him.
How long and at what age? Like, what's the perfect amount for you to develop an accent? Like, if I move to Boston now, I'm not going to end up with a Boston accent. But it sounds like if you move to a place with an accent, Georgia, when you're 14, that's where you can develop an accent.
Well, I think it's different when it's like you're moving to a place where you don't speak the language because you're very intent on sounding like other people.
That's a very good point.
Like you could move to Boston and they would understand you fine. That's more important. He's got to learn the language. So I feel like if you're a foreign country, you're going to pick it up quicker.
I agree with that. I will say when I went to college and would come home, my friends would be like, "You have acquired a Boston accent."
Really?
Yeah. I don't think it's strong. Like I don't think people back in Boston would notice it, or they would think you still talk like you're from Missouri, which they did. But I think you pick up a little bit of a twang. Even when I lived in Chicago for like 3 years, I was like 13 to 16 years old or whatever I was. I came back and you would just say things a little bit differently. People would be like, "He's now talk like you're from Chicago." So I think you can pick it up a little bit older. But obviously, when you're younger, you're always more susceptible to.
I gotta go, fellas. I gotta go.
All right, Danny.
Big stuff coming. Sorry, guys.
Right.
Dan's getting on an airplane.
Yep. See you
Have
guys.
a safe airplane ride, Dan.
Yep. See you, boys.
Have a safe airplane ride.
I love where I'm from. I'm very proud of where I'm from, but I have always been a little bitter that I'm from an area that has no accent. Like the Midwest, and I know Chicago has a very particular accent, and there's pockets, but I feel like I'm from a part of the country where I just sound like a person with no accent.
Same. I think we both are. I think like Missouri and Iowa don't really. We almost talk like the most normal English American people can possibly talk. I will say I think that's better than I think Long Island gets a bad rap for their. I mean, we're gonna hype up their weddings and how cool their format is, which is true. I don't know that people look at the Long Island accent as a particularly appealing accent in general.
That's probably right. I mean, I live out there now, so I hear it a good amount. It turns into white noise, but I could see that. I just find it interesting. Like for me and for you, if you go a little north of me, Minnesota has an accent. It starts getting Canadian. It starts It's North Dakota, Minnesota. You start getting, towards Canada, and then south, further than Missouri, but southeast, you get a very, Georgia and Alabama and all those. So
it's very endearing. It
is
charming, yeah.
Or just I'm right in the pocket of the country where I have no accent. It's pretty interesting to me.
Even the Minnesota, Wisconsin, those are endearing too.
I love those.
Nice Canadian type accents, and we don't have. I would say like Pacific Northwest probably don't really have much of an accent either, right? Like they're pretty. They speak.
Not that I can think of.
Normal. I think Cali is more chill, bro, like lexicon than it is accents. I think, but
I think you're right about that.
But yeah, the Southern one I think is the dream. We've always like you meet a nice sweet gal with a Southern accent, you're just like, oh, what a darling.
Or
you just want to take care of her for the rest of your life. It's amazing.
The gold standard for me, at least, is Irish, an Irish accent. I think, or Scottish, but Irish is just fun. Irish is fun, just like British is fun. You're instantly funnier than everyone in the room who has an American accent, even if it's a Southern or a Boston accent. Like Irish, Scottish, UK accents, those people are 25% funnier right off the bat.
Yeah, they got the dream. And then like a good British accent or a good Australian accent.
Yep.
You come over here into the United States of America. I mean, you go from a 6 to a 9 right away, no matter what. So must be nice. I saw too, Dewey said that, what is it? Cuskawilla? Is that the spot?
Yeah, that's the spot.
Cuskawilla was turned up last night. He sent me the video of them that I think they probably sent to Sepp of them going nuts down there. So always cool to kind of see someone who's pretty close to the inner circle getting the win. And then especially an event as important to this show as the John Deere Classic.
Huge.
And then, if I'm doing a little bit of math, I think Sepp took home 1.3. Caddy gets around 10% or so. So Dewey made at least $100,000 plus on a 6-day turnaround going over there and getting the bag for Sepp. Kiz not playing his best stretch of golf, so we'll see where that whole thing goes. But credit to Dewey. I'm sure Kiz is just as happy for him as anybody. So credit to Dewey getting a nice paycheck.
I texted Tillery. I texted him congrats on that. And he's fucking fired up, man. When that circle, you're right. When that circle does well, the Deweys, the Tillerys, and I think Tim is his short game coach too, right?
Seps. Yeah. I think so. That's right.
So that whole circle, man, those are our guys. You can't get closer to us than that. And yeah, Tillery was fired up. He said that my big moment's coming next. So that whole crew, he's the best. He immediately turned it on me. I'm trying to say, hey, John, this is fucking awesome, man. One of your guys just won a tournament that I love, and it's a big tournament. It's a big thing to win on the PGA Tour. And he immediately was like, your moment's coming next. I'm like, dude, let's talk about Sepp Straka winning the John Deere Classic. But I do want to break 90, but let's talk about that for a second. So you're right. That whole circle, we fucking love those guys.
Also a Southern accent circle.
Tillery has such a great accent. When when he is teaching me things, it just goes in my ear smoother. It's like there's like stiff drinks, strong drinks, drinks that burn, that ones that hurt, that are harsh. A Tillery accent is just smooth going in the ears. So it's a circle that has a lot of those accents.
Yeah, Tim's LSU guy too. So like there's a lot of or at least Louisiana somewhere. I think maybe even he does Mississippi State. So I think he's like Mississippi State help that he's done a bunch. So he's from that area. So he's even more Southern accent than the rest of them. So yeah, that crew is just the best. We love them. So congrats to them. This episode is brought to you by FX's Justified City Primeval. Based on the best-selling Elmore Leonard novels, Timothy Oliphant is back as Marshall Raylan Givens. His hair is grayer and his hat is dirtier. Trent, you love this show, don't you? You love this series?
Yeah, so I've recently started my Justified journey. I have not made my way all the way through, but it's not going to take long because it's a fantastic show. It really is. Great lead actor, great story, great everything. So yeah, no, I'm very excited for this whole new thing.
Yeah, you were saying this is a great show. Everybody's always looking for a new show. I don't know how much time we spend scrolling through TV channels, through different apps, looking for something great. I believe that FX's Justified City Primeval, which premieres July 18th on FX, stream on Hulu, is your next option. His hair is grayer. Like I said, his hat is dirtier. While balancing life as a U.S. Marshal and part-time father, a chance encounter sends him to Detroit, where he crosses paths with the Oklahoma wild man, a violent sociopath, and his powerful defense attorney who finds herself caught between cop and criminal. FX's Justified City Primeval premieres July 18th on FX. Stream on Hulu. U.S. Women's Open at Pebble Beach. I was very into this. Saturday was tough to be in because we had the Borrelli wedding and all that. But Thursday, Friday, I was watching it a ton. Yesterday, final round, I watched it a good amount as well. It was tough flipping back and forth between trying to pay attention between the John Deere Classic and the finale kind of got away from us a little bit at Pebble, with Allison Corpus going nuts and just dominating and getting to 10 under. She had like a 4-shot lead, I believe, at some point, ended up finishing at 9 under. But the women at Pebble was insanely cool. I thought Mike Wan made a great point when he was on the broadcast, I think, where he's like, we're making history this week, but like, this ain't it. We're coming back here every 5 to 10 years, which will be really, really cool. Insane to think that all the history at Pebble from this point or up to this point was just purely men. Very deserving and long overdue that now the women were out there. It was cool hearing like the Nelly Cordas of the world. And then like a lot of them were like, I've never played Pebble Beach before, which,
right.
Because we get like Jordan Spieth almost falls off the cliff on 8 every year. They're playing at Pebble Beach, even if it's not a major championship. And the women, a good amount of them had never played it before. None of them had ever played it before in competition, in a major championship, in the U.S. Open. So to have it there and have it play, I was texting with Kirk a little bit. He was making fun of me for it, but I thought watching the women play it was actually more interesting in a lot of spots than watching the men play it, because the women had such interesting shots into a lot of the greens. Like, when we watch on the 8th hole, for example, which is the most iconic, one of the more iconic par fours in the world. I think Nicklaus called it the best second shot in the history or in the world of golf. Like those guys, if they hit a good layup out there off the tee, because you can't hit driver, you got to punch something out there, 220, 30 yards, whatever it is. And if they've got between 190 and 220 in, like those guys are hitting like 7-iron or something. That's not, like for them, whatever. The women had like a fucking 7-wood in their hand, hitting it over this gorge to a green that's impossible, where if you flare it right at all, you're going back to the drop zone, which a bunch of them had to do. If you go left and bail out left, it's really hard to make par. You're probably just signing up for a bogey. So they had to step up and like hit these hybrids or really long irons in. And it was the same thing coming down on 18. It was like watching Charlie Hall coming down the stretch and her interacting with her caddy and being under the tree. She had 263, I believe it was. And she was like, can I hit this draw from under this tree and get there? Where like those guys are, a lot of those guys, like I think Brooks hit like a 3-iron in or something, which is still a hell of a shot. But like those types of moments and those types of shots that they had to hit into a lot of these greens, and even the cliff on 6, like they hit a good drive out there. And then, we've watched DJ, I remember, and I think it was the AT&T. I don't think it was the US Open, but DJ hit like 3-iron, like 7-iron on that hole onto the green and made like an easy birdie. And the women are standing down there. They've got like a 3-wood in their hand, having to get it up over that cliff.
Right.
To
it's like a real shot.
It's a fucking golf shot.
Right.
I was just like, this is sick watching them have to hit that. And it was same on 10. I think it was Leona Maguire I watched yesterday hit a hybrid into the 10th hole, where again, it sets up similar to the 8th green, where there's a bunker on the left. Nobody on earth could get up and down from that bunker green side left. The whole Pacific Ocean's on the right. The slope of the fairway is left to right. So to step up and hit a shot with a hybrid or a long iron in your hand at one of those pins or in the middle of that green and risk that, an open club face on a left to right lie is going to send it into the ocean. You make double. And she just hit this hybrid that was on a fucking string from like 180 into the wind or whatever it was. And I was like, that is a golf shot, 12th hole. Like they were hitting hybrids and long irons into the 12th hole, which you got to cover that bunker and somehow get it to land off. So it was just really, really cool, I thought, to watch. It was more interesting shot by shot to watch the women play it. It was a little bit of a bummer that she ran away with it. We've talked about like boring golf is winning golf. And she just got it done at the end, which robbed it a little bit of like a huge putt at the end, which she deserved. It doesn't take anything away from her, but it was really, really cool to see them out there at Pebble. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's just a different look. I mean, you watch the men's game and it's just bomb and hit a fucking flip wedge, and it's great to watch. I mean, it's entertaining. It's crazy to watch those guys do that, but it's just a different game when you watch the women's game. And dude, Pebble, I mean, it always delivers. Always, always, always. Just flipping your TV on and seeing Pebble Beach, you're like, oh, I'm going to sit down and watch this. Like it's one of the few properties on earth where it is the star. I mean, the women being there, obviously it's a big deal. First time out there, that's a huge deal. And having it be at Pebble is just a game changer. You just watch it. I'm going to watch golf at Pebble Beach. Doesn't matter what it is. They could live stream the first tee or the 7th tee or any of them, pretty much any of them, and I would watch them. So having a big event out there for the women's game was just the cherry on top.
it made me think like, on what planet are they going to host a major championship in like Houston? Like, I'm sure there's
Dude.
plenty of beautiful golf courses, but you're getting me to turn on the television. I got fucking these women playing Pebble Beach, or they're playing Oakmont, or they're playing Wingfoot, or Shinnecock, or Pinehurst #2. Like, I'm in. And Pebble's the king of that in terms of photogenic on TV and all that. And so that combination, waves crashing, you're 100% right. I'm turning it on no matter who's playing. I'm watching that. And the fact that it was the best women in the world out there. Rose Zhang, another great showing. She didn't get it done, but I think she's finished top 10 or 15 in the only 2 majors that she's played in so far. She was the betting favorite going in. She turned pro like a cup of coffee ago, won her first start. So she continues to dominate. Michelle Wie and Annika coming down the stretch on Friday, playing the 18th hole. I'm glad it ended well with Michelle Wie made a nice putt, and Mike Wan came out there and gave them flowers, and they were both with their husbands, and it was beautiful. But it was a shit show because both of them were 1,000 over par. Annika hits one left, doesn't re-tee, takes a drop that she's adamant about, which people were like, that's a pretty sketchy drop. She's taking time where the other players had to like play up in front of her because she's doing it. Again, you're not going to make the cut. Part of that argument is like, she's a competitor down the stretch. She's trying to do it right and fight for that good. The other one's like, dude, hit another one off the tee right after you snipe hook it into the fucking ocean. Go make your double. Have a beautiful celebration. Like, it doesn't matter. So that part of it was a little bit rocky and I was laughing. Like, everyone wants this to be so ceremonious, and the coverage refuses to cut away from them because the coverage is like, we've been planning all week for this Friday afternoon.
They had meetings about it for sure.
Oh, coming down the most iconic hole in the world, and no matter what they're at, it's going to be beautiful because it's ceremonial as it should be. And it was a shit show. So it was a little bit tough. Luckily, Michelle Wie made like a 30-footer for par. She actually got up and down from an incredible like plug fried egg lie. Made a nice putt that was put a little bit of put a bow on the whole thing, which I thought was great. So I thought it was a little bit of a miss, ironically, that the two of them were in the same group, because I thought it kind of took away from each one of them a little bit, where the camera was like focusing on like, her career was great, but like her career was great and a little bit better, but she was a big figure. And you're kind of like, oh, which one am I focused on a little bit? So that part I thought like was a good idea, but actually as it played out it was a little weird for me at the end.
Yeah, on paper that makes sense. You think visually, or like you're going to watch these two walk down 18. But you're right. If you split them up, you kind of give each one their moment, as opposed to having like dueling. It was a bit odd for sure.
So that part was a little odd, I thought, but also kind of beautiful. Like, you got to take it for what it is, and which it was. And like, it was interesting hearing them talk about like Annika's career is literally like about as much winning as you could possibly do. Yeah. And then Michelle Wie's career is almost the exact opposite. It's like about as big of a superstar and hype as you can have, incredible impact on the game. She now like hosts and is ambassador for her own tournament and on tour, but only won like a handful of times, and won the one major, which was at Pinehurst #2, which is my favorite course. And it was the week after the men, the first time they'd done that. So very, very iconic, but like, she was playing at PGA Tour events when she was like 14 and missed the cut by 1, I think.
Insane.
So it's like she had all this hype, clearly didn't get do as much winning as she would have liked, yet she's this iconic figure in the game. She was insanely popular and famous and got these millions and millions of dollars contracts at a young age. So the two of them kind of coming out, it was overall beautiful, but I thought it was like, it just could have gone a little more perfectly, I thought.
For sure.
And it just kind of made me chuckle. It's hard to like perfectly choreograph. There's my Chipotle. It's hard to perfectly like choreograph that stuff.
It's rare that you're going to get like a Derek Jeter send off where you hit the game winner and people are going crazy. Life is very, very rarely. It's far more like missing the cut by a billion strokes and kind of limping to the finish. That's reality for it. So it was kind of perfect in that way.
And you get, you always see the clip of Nicklaus making the birdie putt, I think it was, at his final hole at the old course. And like, they don't show that he probably doubled like 6 holes getting up to that point. And so,
That's right.
and which is fine. That's like, you want the moment. And Michelle Wie will always have that moment of that putt, which was beautiful. Annika always have her and her husband out there hugging on the 18th green. So it was overall beautiful, but it wouldn't be the right show if we didn't talk about a little bit of the part that was imperfect, which made me laugh throughout the whole thing. Couple more things I want to get to before we throw it to Senator Johnson, who, the thing I will say about the Senator Johnson interview too, is that we have tried on this show many times, I think, to understand and articulate the PGA Tour versus the LIV Golf situation in like a rational, understanding way. And it always divulges into like emotional, opinionated, kind of like disastrous, choppy discussion where we want to kill each other and we claim that the other person is like a human rights violator. And like this with him was just, he is a polished senator who every point that I brought up and everything that we discussed, just in a very rational way, was able to tie it to bigger picture and kind of just explain how he understands it and explain what he, is kind of hoping to get out of it. And largely his takeaway is that like, it's too early. I totally understand why they did this. I'm eager to learn more about it. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. This is kind of the main takeaway.
That's good. And you in the group chat, you said, I've got this guy who's going to do the show, and you had asked to do it by yourself, which we all agreed to, because if you bring all of us into an interview like that, it's going to devolve into stupid questions, and we're all going to be like, but this happened and that happened. So, and you've got a little bit of a background in politics. For people that don't know, when you originally got hired, it was to blog about politics. So you're very interested in that world. And so you doing that by yourself, I think, is going to make it far more clearer for the listener, which is good.
I think so. And it was good.
Yes.
And it was cool to hear him. It was cool to hear him talk about this situation as from basically a business and a business in America related to government, which it's not supposed to really be affected by government situation. And I was like, we're so close to this that every week we change our opinion. We fight about this part of it, what that guy said. And his, stance largely on it again was like, well, we have a business that does about $1.25 billion in assets. We have another that has $600 billion in assets. One was essentially threatening the other, and one found an incredible opportunity, it sounds like, for them to improve their chances of survival, actually lock up their chances of survival and influx a bunch of cash and not get essentially run out of the building. And of course, they took that. We're looking forward to learning more about that deal. I was like, that makes a lot of fucking sense, Mr. Senator. So,
dude, I've been thinking about this whole deal and how it went down a lot. And what I've realized, the biggest lesson that I learned is that the social issues tied to this entire thing are obviously important. But what you'll also find is that the powers that be will use that fighting between both sides to just make a move when people aren't paying attention. And that has honestly been my biggest takeaway. And if you look at life like that, it's a little bit like, it's a little pessimistic, which I don't love to be, but this fighting about like the social issues that are important, that things are happening to people that we don't want to happen. But while that fighting gets red hot and people are at each other's fucking throats and they're like, but you aren't thinking of other people. While that's going on, the people in these rooms are just making moves and they're watching the chaos outside and they're like, but we're just going to do what we want to do because they're distracted.
Yep.
It's incredible.
Largely what he said, and I threw a bunch of questions at him. This was something I was excited to hear about, like the Senate sort of stance on like what all is going on. So it was me and Bush were texting afterwards, like it's a fascinating conversation. And hearing from him was such a bigger picture, more polished understanding of this situation and approach on this situation than I think we've ever delivered on the show. So I think, and it's a sitting United States senator from Wisconsin. So that part is very cool. So I think people are going to enjoy the conversation. The hearing is today when people are listening to this. So I'm sure tidbits will be coming out. I'm going to be watching it. I'm excited to kind of see what happens and see what they grow with these. It is interesting in that Monahan's not there. Yasser Al-Rumayyan's not there. And Greg Norman's not there. But Jimmy Dunn's there, and the COO of the PGA Tour is there. I believe it is Ron Price. Is that guy's name? So they'll be there testifying in front of this subcommittee of senators, kind of, trying to explain more of what the framework, what the deal is going to look like and all that. So it'll be fascinating to pay attention. This Brooks Koepka, Matt Wolff thing I got to talk about real quick. Brooks Koepka, this I think is actually the juice that you're looking for if you're a live golf enthusiast. Is if you're going to go the team golf route, this is what Formula One is built on, baby. This is like those fucking drivers are at each other's throats. One of the key elements to that entire business is that you got two drivers driving the same fucking car. And if one of them does better than the other, they can't blame anybody because they got the same car. And that part of the Netflix drama and the show is what drives so much of the intrigue. And with the live golf, you're going to try to get it. This is what you're looking for. This is what like the NBA does a great job at. It's like marketing this type of drama among teammates. And for Brooks Koepka to come out and say, he goes, I mean, when you quit on your round, you give up and stuff like that. That's not competing. I'm not a big fan of that. You don't work hard. It's very tough to even have a team dynamic when you've got one guy that won't work. One guy is not going to give any effort. He's going to quit on the course, break clubs, gets down, bad body language. It's very tough. I've basically given up on him. A lot of talent, but I mean, that's talent wasted, which
fuck, man,
as
brutal,
scathing of a review of someone as a teammate that I've ever heard, I think, in my life.
And listen, we've spent a little bit of time with each of these guys, Brooks and Matt Wolff. And, you know, I could have predicted that these two probably aren't going to get along all that well. Like, we would spend time with Matt Wolff at TaylorMade Media Day. Really sweet guy, really nice guy. Just kind of like, he would go back to where he went to college and he would like hang with his buddies.
OSU,
like,
did he go to Oklahoma?
Yeah, he went to Oklahoma State, and he would like, he's just got kind of a different vibe to him. Not probably the most unlike, like we met a lot of professional golfers. He's in a category kind of on his own. And then you've got Brooks, who is just this man's man who's like, I want to win. I've got 5 majors. Like, all the talent that I have, even if it's not the most in the world, I'm going to squeeze out every single bit of it. And I'm going to work hard. And I'm going to go play these different tours. And I'm going to come back. I'm going to put all these trophies in my trophy case. The fact that those two guys aren't necessarily getting along is not the most surprising thing in the world. I will say it's tough for Matt Wolff to learn about all these things through the media. And I think he has said that, where you got your guy coming at you, not in a sit down, not behind closed doors, but he's so fed up that he's saying this to the media. And then you got to find out, I feel for Matt Wolff, but I can see both sides of it.
Yeah, I think everybody had a sad reaction when you saw Matt Wolff. Like, instead of fighting fire with fire, he was just like, that makes me sad that I heard that. You're like, oh, fuck.
And that's Matt Wolff's personality. He's also a guy who, he took a little bit of time off during his PGA Tour career where he's like, I just got to get my head on straight. And like, it's hard, that harshness that comes from learning the way a person feels about you through the media, that's just not great. And yeah, he's not going to fight it. He's just going to be like, that sucks, man. I wish that didn't happen.
Dude, the word he used is heartbreaking. He goes, to hear through the media that our team leader has given up on me is heartbreaking. And that's just...
And he
no
means
human
it, dude.
can have a reaction to the word heartbreaking and not be like, oh.
Right. Yeah, no,
fuck.
But you're right. If you're talking about from a bird's eye view and an entertainment standpoint, yeah, dude, this is what you want. You want people being like, I've given up on my teammate because he's not putting forth the effort that we think is acceptable. So this is the way that it is.
Yeah, if I'm in my Senator Johnson big picture, chair, this is great. I mean, this is great. I'm removing myself from how sad it is, and this is what you want. This is the juice, headlines, team dynamics, people infighting. Like, that's awesome. But just the term heartbreaking, Matt Wolff. I love Matt Wolff. He's been so sweet with us. He played a whole blindfolded with us. To hear that he's heartbroken, to find out via the media, was just so sad. So sad.
It was.
And then we got golfers at Wimbledon. The spring break crew, they're all over the place. They're posting, geared up at Wimbledon. But no matter what they do, our guy Tommy Fleetwood takes the cake. Nobody's ever looked more like a king, like they're supposed to be at Wimbledon, than Tommy Fleetwood at Wimbledon, with the hair and the look and the beard and the outfit and the hat. Just an absolute king at Wimbledon, I thought.
Seeing Tommy Fleetwood just makes me so happy. Knowing how great of a guy he is. And yeah, that outfit was a 100 out of 10. If you're going to Wimbledon, you got to dress. I know people were giving Jordan Spieth shit for the wrinkly suit. Like, again, we just had the wedding this weekend, and I'm tweeting out pictures of me and Frankie or all of us at the event, and people are like, oh, nice suit, car salesman. And I want to make one thing clear. I don't care about suits. Like, I wanted to support my friend at his wedding. I wanted to go and show up and go to those events and not look like an insane person. You got to wear a suit. So I have one suit that's maybe not the greatest suit in the world, but it's like, I'm also not a suit connoisseur. I'm not there like, oh, I want the Italian cut. Oh, I want the newest trends that are in suit wear. I just want to wear something that people aren't going to be like, why did that homeless guy come to the wedding? So that's where I'm at with suits. So when people are like, oh, nice suit, I'm like, dude, you're making fun of me for something that I don't care about. But anyway.
Yeah, and and you made a good point too, Trent. I'm about 7.5 years in. You're almost 10 years into a full non-suit life. That's like what we've signed up for. That's what we've built a career around, is never wearing a suit.
Dude, I remember, and this is true, I remember when I first started my first blog, like when I was just pretty much doing it for myself and like 10 of my friends, I remember thinking like one of the bedrocks of wanting to get into this line of work is that I can wear a hoodie and jeans every single day. Like I looked at the job, I looked into the sky and I was thinking about jobs and I was like, what's the one where I can wear a hoodie and jeans pretty much every day? And blogging just happened to be one of those jobs. And I've been lucky enough. I've gotten enough bounces where I've been doing this thing for almost 10 years. So yeah, I'm not like that well versed in suits and fancy dressing up clothes. That's just the way that it is.
Me neither. And I thought about, because of the high profile nature of the wedding, and that like we're probably going to be in photos that Dave Portnoy is going to put out, and he's going to make a TikTok video he doesn't really know how to make, and the whole deal. I actually considered like 6 months ago, I was like, I should go to the suit store, whatever that means, and like I should get a suit or two so that I'm ready for this occasion and any other occasion that may pop up. And then life just occurs, and then it's like Friday, I'm getting ready to pack and go to the wedding. And I'm like, well, I've got the same two options that I've had for 7 years or whatever it's been. And this is just kind of what I'm going to go with. And I'm going to should I iron it? And I'm like, half the time I iron stuff, I put it on the wrong setting and it just burns a hole through it. So I can't risk that. And then I tried to put it in the bathroom while I showered to steam it. And I 100%. Put it too low, so water came underneath outside the shower. The bottom of my shirt got soaked, so I had to blow dry it. So it was a shit show trying to go there. So it's like, this is just not what we do. The fact that we, like you said, like I want to check the box where it's like he was respectful.
Yep.
The way he dressed. And then outside of that, like if I could show a little bit of style, but I haven't put in the effort, so here we are is kind of what I went with. And that's just how
the thing appeared. Too. We're living in such a world where if you go all the way the other way, people are like, what's this? Who the fuck does this guy think he is? Wearing like a velvet suit to the wedding. Like, no. I'm just the suit that I've had for a couple years now, I'm just going to wear this. I know people are probably going to shit on it if they see it, but I know that just being there, supporting your friend, that's all you need to do, and everything else is just whatever. So
I thought you looked great, Trent.
I thought you looked good as well. I really did.
Thank you. And then we got the Scottish Open, the Genesis Scottish Open this week, which the biggest takeaway from this every year is that we got to say Renaissance, not Renaissance. This is at the Renaissance Club, I believe, in Scotland, in the is it in the North Berwick area? I think it is. It's somewhere near North Berwick.
I think that's right.
I remember because this time last year on Friday, Max Homa made the cut and then went and played North Berwick in the evening because you could play till like 11 o'clock at night. So we get our first. This is sort of where we start to dip our toes into links golf. Next week is the British Open Championship at Hoylake. This week, a bunch of guys go over there. I think I saw the betting favorite is Scotty Scheffler and then Rory McIlroy. I think of Tommy Fleetwood's playing, Ricky Fowler's playing.
Dude, I think Tommy, that's what I was going to say while we were talking about him. We kind of got off on a little bit of a suit rant, but Tommy Fleetwood, that is a guy, just everything's kind of trending in that direction, right? He played so well at the U.S. Open. He's been in the mix pretty much all year. British Open for Tommy Fleetwood, that feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, I love that choice. He was so close in the playoff. He's been playing well. He hits the ball great. Slower green, so a guy who's such a ball striker that you're thinking make putt. It's Henrik Stenson comes to mind when he won the British Open of just striking the shit out of his ball. So yeah, I like that choice a lot. I'm really hyped up to get into British Open next week, to watch some links golf this week. We did the whole Scotland trip last year. I love links golf. I love how different it is. It's shot for shot. We were just talking about how cool it was to watch the women at Pebble and how it's different this is like shot for shot as fun to watch actual golf shots as it gets, outside of the drama and the stakes and the situation, like just the actual golf shots, the bounces, the pot bunkers, all how different it is from what we watch week in and week out. We get back-to-back weeks of it here. So very exciting stuff. All right. I think that's all we got. So reminder to go to store.barstoolsports.com, hit that foreplay tab, check out our new line. We got all kinds of good stuff, including shorts that have a logo on it. We got a video coming out Thursday night, Foreplay YouTube channel. That's Dave Portnoy versus Jersey Jerry, and a very intense grudge match. And then we've got an interview right now with a sitting United States Senator from the state of Wisconsin, Senator Ron Johnson. We'll be back on Thursday. Hit it hard.
Hit it hard.
All right, this one's simple for me. This is the Links Golf app, and at its core, you always want to play golf with other people, but that's just not necessarily always an option. Maybe you sneak out in the morning, you've got an available window before a meeting, you want to go out and play, but you would like to have a little bit of competition. Maybe you do it in the evening, maybe on a Saturday morning, you just can't get your friend group together. People got kids, they got lives, they got whatever. Links Golf app, super easy to use, clean look. It's the first ever app of its kind to offer real golf leagues from your phone. Fantasy League meets reality in the golf world. For a limited time, there is full free access. Great for all golfers, no matter your level, with normalized scoring based on index, hole handicaps, and course difficulties. Trent, you can play with different folks in different states, have matches against them, have leagues against them. You don't have to necessarily be with them in person and still get a little competitive edge.
This is genius. This is a genius idea. It's all the things that you said. You want a little bit of competition, but people got lives, and they might even live in the same state, but you want to connect with them. You grew up playing golf with them, but life happens, and this app can still bring everybody together on the golf course. It's a really, really awesome app idea. I really think so.
It keeps friends and family members and former teammates, colleagues, together and connected, but it also keeps, pro athletes, YouTube golfers, folks that you might follow connected as well, where you can play different courses, still have matches. So Links Golf app made it easy for golfers who have never been able to play in a competitive league or local course, because they can now play at their own time from separate courses. They use the rating system and all that to match it up, make it fair, and see who wins. You don't have to play versus your friend at the same time. You can have 7 different days is what it is to complete a match. You don't have to use the app when you're playing, so you can just fill in the scorecard post round. I know some people don't like to be on their phones the whole time. The app is great to use as a side match with a buddy in different states. You can have a match against people that you're playing in real life. If you do have friends, congratulations to you. And you can also have a side match afterwards when you plug in the scores. So download the Links Golf app on App Store or Google Play to set up a league and start playing for this golf season. For more information, go to www.linksgolfapp.com. Again, go download the Links Golf app on App Store or Google Play right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, incredibly special guest today. We are joined for the very first time by a member of the United States Senate. He's from the great golf state of Wisconsin, which has, I believe, 10 of the top 100 ranked golf courses in the country. He is the ranking member of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. Senator Ron Johnson, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, and you're right. We've got some great golf courses in Wisconsin.
Oh, it's beautiful. There's several of our favorites. We're actually going there in a few months, and I'm pretty excited. But we've got some pretty serious matters to discuss today. You have invited the senior kind of officials from PGA Tour, from the PIF, and from LIV Golf. Only a few from the PGA Tour actually showing up, but we'll get to that, to testify in front of the subcommittee. My first question is why?
Well, I did join in the invitations, but I did not join in the initial request for information, and I won't join in the majority's memo that they'll put out probably before the hearing, primarily because I think it's too early for Congress to really even get involved. From my standpoint, these should be private negotiations, and negotiations can be delicate. And I love the game of golf. I want to see the breach healed between the PGA Tour and LIV. And I'm just afraid that Congress's involvement on a premature basis may screw everything up.
Yeah, you said something very interesting. You said you're an accountant, you're a numbers guy by trade. That if you look at Congress and its trillions of dollars in debt versus the PGA Tour, which is I think $1.25 billion or so in assets, you sort of said, who are you guys to tell a business like that how to manage their finances and what decisions to make?
Well, that's certainly one aspect of it. We can't get our own much larger house in order. But again, there's not even a deal to really review or evaluate yet. There's the outlines of the deal. The only thing that is definitive right now is the lawsuits have been dropped and they can't be brought back up again. And if you're a fan of professional golf, you have to recognize that what LIV represented was an existential threat to the PGA Tour. One of the ways it threatened the tour was just bleed them dry with legal fees. So that's a real accomplishment for the PGA Tour and probably for LIV from the standpoint that they don't have to go through discovery now, which is probably why they agreed to just drop the lawsuits. It was kind of mutually assured destruction.
Do you think does that concern you at all? Because to me, that was one of the key sort of points that they harped on. I believe it was June 6th when Yasser Al-Rumayyan and Jay Monahan met together. They were on CNBC and they said, one of the key points to this deal is all legislation is being dropped. To some, that could be a little bit concerning, that they said, rather than us go through litigation, rather than us have everyone dig into the books, into the messaging, into, any potential stifling of competition, a key point to us making a deal is we're going to drop all lawsuits.
Well, to me, it's a rational choice. I'm a business guy. I avoided lawyers in the judicial process like a plague in business. And so any business people that come to their sense and decide to mutually agree to end their legal suits, I think it's a pretty rational decision in general. Again, let's just lay out the basic facts. The PGA Tour is the premier tour of golf. I mean, most of the top players play in their tournaments week in and week out. They operate based on market disciplines. They've got to have an attractive enough product to attract audience at the tournaments, viewership on TV so they can get the media deals, and then sponsorship at the actual tournaments. So it's a market-disciplined business. All of a sudden, the public investment fund, Saudi Arabia, enters the fray. They want a foothold in golf. They want to have a seat at the table, and they're willing to spend whatever it takes to get that seat at the table. And so it's not a fair fight. The PGA, its net worth is I think a little less than $1.5 billion. The PIF has estimated assets somewhere between 600 and 700 billion. So they're more than 400 times larger than the PGA. And if they want into a sport like golf, which is a global sport, they're going to be in it. So that's the reality the PGA was facing and what they, in the end, had to face up to.
So one of the phrases that you and Senator Blumenthal, who is the chairman of the subcommittee, have used is Saudi takeover. It said, he released part of his statement was, our goal is to uncover the facts about what went into the PGA Tour's deal with the Saudi Public Investment Fund and what the Saudi takeover means for the future of this cherished American institution and our national interests. So how, on a larger scale, the United States of America and moral and ethical standpoints and where we stand versus where other regimes stand, how concerning is it and how much do you guys factor in just general Saudi involvement and takeover in big institutions in our country?
Well, I don't believe that's a word I've ever used. He may have written it. Maybe I signed on the letter where he used that word. First of all, we don't have a deal yet. When you take a look at the framework, the only thing definitive is the lawsuits are now dropped. They can't be brought back up again. They're supposed to be maintaining a certain confidentiality, but the 5-page framework agreement was, I think, leaked the day it was turned over to us. Other than that, it's all nebulous. It's all amorphous. It's all up in the air. And I don't think in any way, shape, or form this is going to be an easy deal to consummate, and they may not succeed by the end of December, and then all bets are off. So you can't, based on the framework, say that this is a Saudi takeover of golf. They've certainly obtained a seat at the table. But it looks to me like the PGA was pretty successful, again, at any of the lawsuits, which was, again, could have bled them dry. but they maintain control over golf, professional golf, the structure of its tournaments. They even maintain voting control over the new for-profit entity. The PIF would get the chairmanship, a seat at the table. And that's maybe all that the Saudis ever really wanted. This might have been accomplished in a less painful way. But again, until you actually have a deal, there's really nothing to comment on. And I would rather let these parties try and work out something for the good of the game. I don't doubt that everybody in the midst of these negotiations loves the game of golf, probably wants to succeed long-term in the future. Now, they may have different visions of what that looks like, but, I mean, let's face it, Greg Norman loves the game of golf. The players that accepted the PIF's offer and went over to LIV, I think they love the game of golf. They maybe didn't think they were being compensated properly on the PGA Tour, and that's a problem with every professional sport. How do you adequately compensate the stars in relationship to what I would call journeyman players seeking the top? How do you do that and try and keep everybody satisfied? Well, it's probably an impossible task, but it's one that obviously the advent of LIV put on display in terms of PGA.
So you've mentioned a lot of the theme that I've gathered so far, right, is that this has just been pretty much announced. We don't know a lot of the details. So tomorrow, who will be testifying and you'll be asking questions to will be Ron Price, who's the chief operating officer of the PGA Tour, Jimmy Dunn. They architected the deal, it sounds like. Yasser Al-Rumayyan, Greg Norman, Jay Monahan will not be there, but down the road, I imagine they will be at some point. What is your goal then to find out, to discover tomorrow that will give you more of a sense of whether or not this will, go through, be blocked, whatever that might be?
Well, again, if it were up to me, I wouldn't be holding the hearing. I'd let the parties negotiate a deal, then maybe consider taking a look at it. Congress does have a role to play when it comes to sports in general and sports relationship to the Sherman and Clayton antitrust acts. It's a very confused mess right now, and courts have actually asked Congress to get involved and try and straighten it out. But again, the chairman called the hearing. I'm the ranking member. I have responsibility to certainly be as constructive as possible in my role. And so I will certainly give the PGA every opportunity to lay out the predicament it was in and tell the public, what its perspective is in, the current negotiations.
I understand. If it wasn't your call, but you'll be there now that you are, right? This has been I would say a relatively difficult time to get mergers and acquisitions through. We've seen a few blocked relatively recently. This would be, and another term that was used was a cherished organization, the PGA Tour and its kind of cultural relevance in the United States. So, from that standpoint, now that you're in it, you are going to be there, whether you called it or not. What would you like specifically to try to pull out of it, if anything, or are you just not concerned that much?
No, listen, the PGA is going to have a good opportunity to explain the position it found itself in, why it acted the way it did over the last couple of years, and in the end, why the two parties got together and ended the mutually assured destruction. And what their goals are going to be moving forward. I think it'll be very, hopefully, informative. Again, I don't think Congress should be involved at this stage, but I'm highly interested in the subject. I mean, I've been reading all I can. I've gotten up to speed. I'm not a lawyer, but I've looked at the antitrust laws as it applies to sports. So I find this extremely interesting, as I think you do, as your listeners do. I just don't think, again, it's generally. The permanent subcommittee investigation is investigating some kind of wrongdoing. And I don't see anything wrong with the PGA Tour trying to negotiate its survival. And I also think we're probably premature holding a hearing when we're laying to bear just the different actions that have occurred during the course of a negotiation that is not yet complete. Again, my biggest concern is, as I read the the framework, I think the PGA ended up in about as good a position as it could have expected to end up, with total control over the tournaments and golf and even the for-profit entity. Saudi Arabia got a seat at the table. I don't know how they could have really, from the PGA Tour standpoint, ended up in a better position. I hope our hearing doesn't blow up, these negotiations that we're in the midst of, or that they are in the midst of.
Do you feel like this hearing was called largely because of how high profile this case became?
Well, it's obviously a high profile case. And like I say, I've got a great deal of interest in this. I mean, I was shocked when the deal was announced. I certainly did not like to see players that I really enjoy watching playing, that I respect, at each other's throats. I mean, I thought that was terrible for the game. So, I'm hoping that everybody can repair the breach and we can continue to enjoy golf for the great game it is, both playing and watching it.
As just a citizen, as somebody who finds, you're a United States senator, incredibly powerful position. Here you are going to a hearing. What's your process for a hearing like that? How deep are you reading? How much are you getting memos? Are you doing a mix of both? What's your process going into a hearing like this?
Well, we've had we all have staff, and the PGA has given us literally a couple thousand pages of documents. I think LIV has given us even more in terms of pages. How much is actually relevant? It's a fraction of that. And so staff sifts through those thousands of pages of documents, highlights the important ones. In the meantime, I read everything I possibly can on the subject, and just get up to speed on it, and then develop my own line of questioning, what I'm particularly interested in. I've got to write an opening statement, which I'm still working on, and just kind of lay out my thoughts.
How fast can you read? So I feel like you guys get thousands and thousands of documents and then make decisions upon them.
Well, I often wish I would have taken the Evelyn Wood speed reading course. I comprehend what I read, so I take my time to make sure I understand it.
Is there any desire for you to understand the PGA Tour and Jay Monahan in specific sort of 180-degree turn from invoking the attacks on 9/11 and the moral high ground and saying that the PGA Tour players will never have to apologize for where they play golf, to a year later sitting next to the same folks that he said players would have to apologize for and cutting a deal?
I think I already understand it. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to understand the position the PGA was in, sort of the human reaction to try and lash out and try and, again, you're fighting for survival at that point in time. But, LIV didn't go away. They had their first season. They were able to poach, some top players. And, then they went to court, and the legal bills were mounting. And the PGA won some parts of the lawsuit. For example, the PIF was not granted immunity from discovery, and that might have been what triggered the Saudis' willingness to sit down and basically end the mutually assured destruction as well. So again, that's what it takes to do a deal. People have to realize that it's in their best interest to stop the lawsuits. And again, I really don't doubt that everybody involved in this negotiation does love the game of golf. They may have different perspectives on how they view the future for golf, how top players ought to be compensated, how many tournaments they need to play in for the good of the game, for the good of themselves. Again, it's a very complex situation. Running a PGA Tour outside of LIV showing up was difficult enough, I'm sure challenging enough, and then all of a sudden you have an entity that wants a foothold, that wants to say in how professional golf is managed with virtually unlimited resources, or willing to spend way outspend you. That's a real challenge. So I can kind of understand what the management of the PGA Tour was going through. I also understand why they had to keep these negotiations very closely held. I think, there's a lot of uproar from players initially. I think just as you read accounts, some of them have calmed down a little bit as they kind of realize, you couldn't really tell like a dozen players, not tell the rest of us. So again, they're in the midst of a negotiation. And I think this has, this will not be easy to conclude. Let's put it this way: that especially now it's been made public, and there are people attacking you from all sides. So I hope they can come to agreement. I hope they can repair the breach.
A few things on that. I think there's you said a few times you believe that everyone involved loves the game of golf, and I think that there's quite a few people that are involved in golf that have followed all of this that need to kind of be brought along a little bit to believe that the Saudis just purely love the game of golf. And
first of all, I didn't say purely,
but okay,
there are multiple objectives from other people too. I mean, they all love the game of golf, but let's face it, players want to make as absolute much money as they can, playing as few tournaments as possible. I don't think there's any doubt that the Saudis are trying to repair their image throughout the world. I'd like to think that the Saudis are sincere in trying to modernize their culture. Give more freedom to women, for example. That's going to be a process. So there are multiple objectives here. But I think one thing they have in common amongst different perspectives and different objectives, I think the people at least involved in the negotiations love the game of golf.
So I guess that I would say, we've mentioned a few different times that the PGA Tour, and I think we can all understand, was in when you have $1.25 or $1.5 billion in assets, you're going up against PIF, which has $600 or $700 billion in assets. Not a fair fight. There's not that much they could do. They did all they could. I think, people's point would then be the reason the hearing was called, the reason that the Senate can't get involved is because you guys can actually do something at some point, right? If the Tour can't necessarily defend themselves because they're up against just a behemoth that at the end of the day is going to win, they're going to pay people too much, it's going to end their business, you guys could. So my question then would be, at some point, when does or where does the Senate, your guys' subcommittee, have the power to potentially step in and say, you know what, like the United States of America, the way that we operate here, the way that we try to think about things from a moral and ethical standpoint on top of a rational business standpoint, we can now implement X power. How could it get to that point?
Well, let's review the entire situation. Why does Saudi Arabia have $600 to $700 billion in a public investment fund? It's because we all use oil and we all drive cars. So we are responsible for filling up that public investment fund to the tune of $600 to $700 billion. I mean, do we expect the Saudis to take that money and then just burn it? No, they're going to take that money and they're going to invest it. Now, in general, it is good for foreigners to invest in America. That means our economy is doing well. It means that we have a stable political situation. And we encourage investment. I mean, that's what creates jobs. We need investment in this country, both domestic and foreign investment. I would much rather have the Saudis modernize, respect human rights, and invest in America than cozy up to China or Russia at this point in time. Start trading their oil in Chinese currency as opposed to the petrodollar. So, again, you can isolate and put the entire burden of, the Saudis' human rights abuses on the PGA and expect them to show that full burden. But then that just denies the fact that, we're the ones that use the oil that fill up the PIF, that give them the financial wherewithal to invest in all kinds of businesses in the U.S., not just PGA. And I realize PGA is a highly visible entity, but they're deep Saudi investments in all kinds of American businesses. Are we going to ask all those American businesses to divest, not accept those investments and watch the value of those stocks plummet? So again, we have a global integrated economy, and I think we need to understand how it's not just the PGA that's dealing with Saudis. We all are when we use oil.
It's quite interesting for us because we have viewed this in a bit of a silo, right? We're a golf podcast. That's what we do. We talk about golf forever, and to have someone who's in your position who, is been an elected official who understands kind of the larger game being played and the larger influence, and that golf is just a little part of it, I think for our audience is incredibly interesting and probably gives everybody much more perspective on the entire situation, which is very important. Do you have any sense of when you might get actually Jay Monahan, Yasser Al-Rumayyan, and Greg Norman in the same room?
Well, first of all, Jay Monahan sounds like he's returning to the tour. Obviously he had health issues, probably dealing with the stress of the situation. I'm a human being. I have a sympathy for that. You can understand the stress he was under over the last 2 years, and then just the added stress of this announcement. And he knew full well what was going to be raining down on him. Just announcing this, can't even call it a deal yet, just a framework of a deal. And quite honestly, one that really relieved the PGA of a huge liability in terms of these lawsuits. There's no way that I know of that we can compel testimony from Greg Norman or anybody involved with the PIF. The PGA is coming in voluntarily. That's to their credit. And again, I hope to be constructive in giving them an opportunity to relay their perspective and tell the American public, the global public, what they were faced with and why they felt they had to do what they did.
From what I've understood and from what we've heard, this could take a year plus before this is ever resolved at all. Do you feel like this might be that long at least?
Well, I think the framework suggests that all bets are off if they don't come to an agreement by the end of this year. And again, holding hearings, having this framework put up against public scrutiny the way it's been, has had to endure, I think it makes it less likely that you're actually going to end up with a deal, and I think that'd be unfortunate.
Yeah, I think it makes more and more sense why it was kept so quiet. It almost was perplexing to me and to all of us that they announced it at all. Do you wonder why it seemed kind of rushed a little bit to announce it? Did you get that sense at all?
I think it was very important for the PGA to announce that they no longer had legal liability. And I'm sure they also had to file those dismissals in court, and those would be public records. So they probably didn't have a choice as to whether or not to go public because the court motions, those judicial filings would probably have been made public. But again, I'm not an attorney, but that'd be what I would assume.
Well, Senator, we're like I said, this has been enormous in our world for the last year and a half. It did become an incredibly public story in early June when it was announced, so much so that we were all of a sudden on primetime shows talking about it because golf became part of the forefront. And I think that kind of what you've said multiple times about ultimately, if this goes through and all the actors involved are truly good actors that want the best for the game of golf, there'll be a ton of money infused into it. There'll be the infighting between LIV and the PGA Tour will be over. And I think that, we can all hope that this will, at the end of the day, be a fantastic thing for golf. And we want it to be a fantastic thing for golf because golf is such a great sport. Again, we talked earlier, you're a good golfer. I'd be more of a duffer, I'd say, 15 handicap. But golf has a handicap system that allows us to compete in an enjoyable fashion. And golf is a game to watch because we're all golfers. I mean, we can empathize with a pro that's trying to hold on to a one-shot lead or that has to execute a difficult shot or sink a crucial putt. We celebrate in their successes and we feel awful for them when they fail. It is a great, great sport. It's a meritocracy. Every golfer, rises or falls on his own or her own. And so it's just a great game. And you want to see golf. It's fun to watch any golf, at any level. It's fun to watch, but you certainly enjoy watching golf played at the absolute highest level. And you'd like it to be able to play at the highest level with the best competitors as often as possible. And that's, in the end, what I'm hoping will be accomplished through all this is we repair the breach and professional golf at the highest level continues because it's a fabulous sport. I mean, you go back to Francis Ouimet, the greatest game ever played, and golf just keeps getting better. It's very interesting. We've talked about golf and it's as an entity and it's not as big as the NFL. It doesn't have as big of a market cap as the NBA, but 3 of the top 4 highest earning athletes in the history of the world are golfers. It goes Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus. And so for some reason, and probably a lot of the reasons that you just outlined, golf is insanely influential in our culture, in our world. It's so individualistic. It levels the playing field, and it's individualistic in the sense that you are out there alone. It's you that hits the shots. You don't get to rely on a team. You can't have a bad game and hope your goalie bails you out. You have to just either be out there and hit the shots, or when you inevitably fail, which even the best golfers of all time fail 80, 90% of the time, you see how you handle yourself in failure. You see if you have the humility to handle it well and bounce back. And so I found that very interesting, that even though golf isn't as influential by the market cap in the United States, a lot of the biggest figures in the history of golf have become the richest and more influential figures in our society. So I find that very interesting.
Well, when any end of game scenarios is exciting. And team sports can be really exciting, but there's something in particular about golf where it comes down to those last couple holes, and as a golfer, the pressure that's on that golfer, and you got to stay relaxed. I mean, you got to have the soft grip. I mean, you got to hit, the perfect shot, and you just know how difficult it is. And then when you see these guys like Wyndham Clark win the U.S. Open, you see all the pressure released once that final putt goes in. There's just nothing else in sports like it, quite honestly. I think that's one of the reasons that pros probably, the ones who succeed, as Nicklaus and as Artie Palmer did and Tiger Woods did. It's just unique. It's a unique type of winning.
It really is. It really is. Well, I appreciate the information and the insight. It's really helped. It's helped me. I think it's going to help a lot of folks that are listening, and we've got a long road to go. But I think tomorrow, hopefully, we'll get some more information. And we know you're an insanely busy person with an important schedule. So, Senator Johnson, we appreciate the time.
I appreciate the opportunity. It's a fun topic.
Thank you.